Okay. And then just a brief
Nice.
overview of our session today.
Recording is on.
So today we're bringing our current and former Newman Civic Fellows together for a conversation about food security, housing, and racial justice, along with special guests from FeedMore, Western New York, and Habitat for Humanity, who focus on these issues. So the structure of the session, we're having a panel discussion. We have some questions that we're going to be asking our panel. Hannah has some questions towards the end from a student perspective, and then we would like to open it up to all the attendees. So if you have questions that you would like, we will be doing Q&A towards the end. Feel free to drop those questions in the chat as you think of them, and Devin will be collecting those as we go through the program. And then we'll have a few special announcements at the end. So just to give you an idea of the structure for today. So at this time, I'd like to welcome our guests and share their bios with you. So first we have Stephanie Lawson. She's the Direct Development and Communications Manager for Habitat for Humanity Buffalo. She manages all aspects of fundraising, community outreach, marketing, and public relations. Prior to joining Habitat Buffalo, Stephanie spent 7 years overseeing youth programs for the Food Bank of Western New York and previously managed an adoption center for the SPCA. Stephanie has volunteered for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Erie County, Heart Animal Rescue, and A Perfect Fit Animal Rescue. She is a member of Leadership Buffalo class of 2014, and in 2016 was named one of Buffalo's 30 under 30 by Business First. Precious Patterson is an Assistant Vice President, Wealth Management Client Associate at Merrill Lynch. She is passionate about making a financial difference in the lives of her client one interaction at a time. In her 14 years of tenure, Precious has led several teams in achieving peak performance. She diligently serves on the Leadership Education Advocacy and Development for Women Council and the Team Buffalo Volunteer Board. Precious understands that helping families attain home ownership aids in building stronger communities, and she is a board member for Habitat for Humanity Buffalo and has held that role since 2018. As FeedMore Western New York's Nutrition Services Director, Elyse Burgher oversees all aspects of the organization's youth outreach and nutrition programs, including the backpack and school pantry programs, Just Say Yes to Fruits and Vegetables, the mobile food pantry, and the community garden. Her responsibilities include the supervision of a staff of program coordinators and field nutritionists, the development and management of program budgets, and grant monitoring and reporting. Elyse previously served as a Just Say Yes field nutritionist at the Food Bank of Western New York. We are also excited to have members of our Buffalo community with us here today. Ada Garcia-Poll, a graduate student in the Higher Education and Student Affairs Administration program here at Buffalo State, is deeply committed to civic engagement and its impact on college students and community members. She has served as a student leader and is now an active member of the Buffalo community in addressing a number of specific community issues, including urban poverty and homelessness. Ada was Buffalo State's 2017-2018 Newman Civic Fellow. She is currently working on issues related to mental health in the community of Buffalo, currently working at Calmlier, and has held previous positions at Compass House. Hannah Calmlier is an undergraduate student at SUNY Buffalo State College. She's volunteered her time to organizations such as Terrace View ECMC, Evergreen, Greenfields Rehabilitation Center, Catholic Charities, and Trinity Food Pantry. She is the chair of Buffalo State's Student Civic Leadership Board and has led significant community service initiatives on campus. She is our current Newman Civic Fellow. So we have a wonderful panel today, and I would also like to do a special shout out to Krista Arvell Adams, who is serving as a facilitator for the Buffalo State Development Committee Watch Party. Krista Arvell is our former Newman Civic Fellow and has had a strong commitment to social justice, civic engagement, and community service. As a student leader of the Men of Merit program and the Men of Merit Advisory Board, He has been instrumental in engaging underrepresented male students by creating initiatives that inspire young men to become men of excellence, distinction, and integrity. So we just wanted to do a special shout out to him as well. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Devin Bradford, our graduate assistant in the Civic and Community Engagement Office, to go over some session agreements.
Hi, everyone. So that we remain respectful of one another and the presenters during this session, we have a few session agreements that we'd like your help to ensure that we uphold. First, we agree to stay focused on the topic at hand. Second, we agree to respect each other's experiences, identities, and opinions. Verbal, written, or physical displays of harassment, hate speech, or disrespect will not be tolerated. Third, we agree to support each other's creativity. Fourth, we agree that we need each other. And finally, we agree that what happens in this session stays in this session. And as we go through this panel discussion, remember to post your questions in the chat or on Facebook Live, and we will gather those for the Q&A session later on.
Thank you, Devin. Okay, so to start off the session, we have a short video that we hope will provide a framework and help us guide the conversation. So it's just a few minutes, and I'm going to share that now.
This is Jamal. Jamal is a boy who lives in a poor neighborhood. He has a friend named Kevin, who lives in a wealthy neighborhood. All of Jamal's neighbors are African American, and all of Kevin's neighbors are white. Because Jamal's school district is mostly funded by property taxes, his school is not very well funded. His classrooms are overcrowded, his teachers are underpaid, and he doesn't have access to high-quality tutors or extracurricular activities. Kevin's school district is also funded by property taxes, so his school is very well funded. His classrooms are never crowded, his teachers are very well paid, and he has access to high-quality tutors and lots of extracurricular activities. Kevin and Jamal live only a few streets away from each other. So how come they're growing up in such different worlds with such different opportunities for success? The answer has to do with America's history of systemic racism. To understand it better, let's look at what life was like for Kevin and Jamal's grandparents. Decades after the Civil War, many government agencies started to draw maps dividing cities into sections that were either desirable or undesirable for investment. This practice was called redlining, and it usually blocked off entire black neighborhoods from access to private and public investment. Banks and insurance companies used these maps for decades to deny black people loans and other services based purely on race. Historically speaking, owning a home and getting a college education is the easiest way for an American family to build wealth. But when Jamal's grandparents wanted to buy a house, the banks refused because they lived in a neighborhood that was redlined. So Jamal's grandparents were not able to buy a home, and because colleges could prevent them from attending through legal segregation, their options for higher education were really scarce. Kevin's grandparents, on the other hand, got a low-interest loan to buy their first house and got accepted into a handful of top universities, which traditionally only accepted white students. This opened up a wealth of opportunities that they were able to pass on to their kids and grandkids. Even as late as the 1980s, an investigation into the Atlanta real estate market showed that banks were more willing to lend to low-income white families than to middle or upper-income African-American families. As a result, today, for every $100 of wealth held by a white family, black families have $5.04. A 2017 study confirms that redlining is still affecting home values in major cities like Chicago today. This explains how Kevin and Jamal inherited vastly different circumstances. Unfortunately, the story doesn't end there. A big part of systemic racism is implicit bias. These are prejudices in society that people are not aware that they have. Let's go back to Kevin and Jamal. Against all odds, Jamal manages to be the only student from his high school to get accepted into a great university, the same one that Kevin and his high school friends are attending. But after Kevin and Jamal both graduate, Jamal notices that his resume isn't drawing as much interest as Kevin's, even though they graduated from the same program with the exact same GPA. Unfortunately for Jamal, studies show that resumes with white-sounding names get twice as many callbacks as identical resumes with black-sounding names. Implicit bias is one of the reasons why the black unemployment rate is twice the rate of white unemployment, even among college graduates today. You can see evidence of systemic racism in every area of life. The disparities in family wealth, incarceration rates, political representation, and education are all examples of systemic racism. Unfortunately, the biggest challenge with systemic racism is that there's no single person or entity responsible for it, which makes it very hard to solve. So what can you do? The first thing you can do is work towards becoming more aware of your own implicit biases. What are some prejudices that you might hold that you're not aware of? Second, let's acknowledge that the consequences of slavery and Jim Crow laws are still affecting access to opportunity today. As a result, we should support systemic changes that create more equal opportunities for everyone. Increasing public school funding and making it independent from property taxes would be a great start, so that poor and wealthy districts can receive equal access to resources. Systemic problems require systemic solutions. Luckily, we're all part of the system, which means that we all have a role to play in making it better. Peace.
So we just wanted to make sure we recognize that racism is a major cause of the high and disproportionate poverty rates among communities of color. So just wanted to use that as a way to kick off the session. So opening question to the panelists, if you could provide an overview of your organization and experience, how you became interested in these issues, your passion for your work. If you could tell us a little bit of your story. And I'd like to first start with Elyse from FeedMore, Western New York.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Elyse. As Tanya mentioned, I work at FeedMore, Western New York. Hopefully you are familiar with FeedMore already, but if not, FeedMore is the recent merger of the Food Bank of Western New York and Meals on Wheels for Western New York. So if you don't know FeedMore specifically, you probably do know those two names from the past as well. So basically the Food Bank of Western New York, our food bank program side, we are the main emergency food provider in the Western New York area. So we cover Niagara, Erie, Cattaraugus, and Chautauqua counties. Throughout that service area, there are multiple almost 300 partner agencies that we have, and those partner agencies are the ones that serve the public directly. So those are things like dining sites, food pantries. We partner with a lot of schools, community centers, things like that to provide food to the public. So we work in partnership and in conjunction with those sites and those volunteers and staff members who serve the public directly with whether it be grocery, food items, or prepared meals as well. We also, on the other side of the house, on the Meals on Wheels traditional side of the house, provide home delivered meals and food for congregate dining sites for seniors. So we have volunteers that drive directly to seniors' homes and provide them with food for the day and also some friendship. So to check on those homebound seniors, make sure that they are doing okay, that they see a new face throughout the day and have somebody to chat with for a little bit as well. Additionally, we also have a new endeavor for us, which is our workforce development program. So we are doing some warehouse training programs in order to help people to be more desirable when it comes to a new job, helping them with resume writing, how to deal with different issues or problems that may come up in applying for a job or keeping a job. And so that is a new program for us that just started this year, which is very exciting. My background, just a little bit, I don't want to take up too much time for myself, but I have a history in nutrition and public health. I have a public health background. So as the nutrition services director, I work with a lot of our nutrition programs and our children's programs, working on, I was formerly a field nutritionist when it was the food bank, teaching individuals how to cook healthy when they are on a budget, which is a big part of the things that we do at FeedMore as well.
Thank you so much. So next, why don't we talk with Stephanie and Precious for Habitat for Humanity. Maybe Stephanie, if you could kick us off.
Sure. I'm Stephanie. I am the Development and Communications Manager for Habitat Buffalo. I have been with Habitat for 4 years. an absolute dream job. It's a really interesting program because a lot of people think they know a lot about Habitat. It's one of the bigger nonprofits globally. So when you say, oh, I work with Habitat, everyone makes an assumption based on what they think they know. A lot of people think it was started by Jimmy Carter, which isn't really true. A lot of people think we give houses away, but that's also not really true. We actually empower families to purchase their home. So we're really helping families build wealth and educate themselves and better their lives for themselves and for their children. So we're really making generational change. Families join our program, and then they have to complete at least 400 hours of sweat equity, which means they have to help build their home, help build their neighbor's home, and take classes that will improve their lives. That is financial education classes, homeownership classes. We even ask our families to, not ask, we require our families to establish a bank account and start saving every month. They have to improve and then maintain their credit score. So those skills that really build success long term, those are things that we work with families side by side to achieve. Most of the families in our program spend about 18 months in our program, and then they repay an interest-free 30-year mortgage. So we partner with that family all the way through the life of that loan. And most of our families don't win the lottery and move on to big mansions and then move out of their Habitat house. Most of them stay in their home, and where we see the biggest change in outcomes is with their children. Many of the children in the families who purchase Habitat homes go on to college, end up making more money than their parents did. It really is that generational change. Prior to working here at Habitat, I spent 7 years over at the food bank working with children's programs. So a lot of the stuff Elyse does with the children's programs, backpack program, school pantry program. And before that, I ran an animal shelter. So I've only ever worked in nonprofit. I have no other skill set. And I guess I'll turn over to Precious, who probably has a little more insight into our family program than I do, actually.
Hi, I'm Precious Patterson. I work for Bank of America Merrill Lynch, started in the branches, seeing a lot of, actually I started in the call center and then moved into the branches, but I saw a lot of families and I saw a lot of differences in terms of income disparity. I saw a lot of disparity in terms of credit. I saw a lot of disparity in terms of savings and the type of people that walked in. There are trends that I saw. So one thing that made me really, really eager to be more invested in ensuring families and individuals. I'm so sorry. So one thing that made me very interested in educating families and individuals about becoming better at their credit, becoming better at saving, becoming better at generating wealth, as Stephanie stated, because I came from lack. I came from a family that I grew up on social services. The idea of owning a home was never in the near front for me. I thought that wasn't an idea. Renting was all that I knew. Walking to get to the grocery store is all that I knew. Using my food stamps that my mom had to get money for the bus was all that I knew. So that fueled my passion to want more for my family, to want more for the families and communities that I serve. So Habitat, very close to home to me. Later on in life, my mother-in-law told me about coming from Puerto Rico and getting a home. And the only way that she was able to get a home was the services like Habitat, where they really focus on education, not just granting you a home, but making sure that you can sustain. So a lot of what I do with Habitat, with the family program, is ensuring that our tenants are not tenants, but future homeowners are actually prepared to be able to sustain that home, to build the wealth that they didn't have or the knowledge that they didn't have. So the financial literacy portion, I'm huge on making sure that first what are the A, B, and C's of home ownership. What do I first need to do in terms of saving and getting prepared for home ownership? So in the event something happens to my home, whether or not I need a siding or a roof replaced or the sidewalk, I know that I have enough reserves in my savings to be able to take care of that. And I know that I can manage my mortgage at the same time because I created good habits, better money habits than I knew of. And that's really what's important, is creating and breaking those generational curses and breaking down those walls of I can't but empowering them to know that they can, and they have a support system, and they have tools to help them do so.
Thank you so much. So, and now I'd like to pass the mic to Ada.
Hi, everyone. So right now I am the Youth Engagement Coordinator at Calmlier, and we focused on the importance of friendship and mentorship in the community. So we pair volunteers and interns from universities around the area with clients that we get referred from professional mental health professionals. So whether it's a social worker from school or if it's a counselor, once we get those kids referred to us, then we get to provide extra support for them, someone that they can talk to, if they need something, if they have something going on with school, especially now during these times. So I actually started this job in August, so I'm pretty new, and I'm so honored to be in this position right now, especially because of my past experience as well. So before Calmlier, I was at Compass House working with youth at risk, and that's I got to see a lot of the mental health, side of things, because a lot of the kids, they were homeless, they didn't have, that guidance, especially they didn't know the system, even they didn't even know where DSS was, to go downtown to do certain things, that type of paperwork. And these are young kids, people get labeled as adult, as an 18-year-old, but you are still learning so much, and that there are things you don't know and that they don't teach you in school at that age. So once they find themselves homeless and whatnot, I had the opportunity to work one-on-one. And, as I worked, I learned a lot about the system and how things work in the community of Buffalo. And so before Compass House, I was actually a youth counselor for Compass House as well, but I was not a case manager. I was in the shelter. So I was able to see another perspective of the agency, not just working one-on-one for legal circumstances, but just being there with the child and just knowing how the child felt, not whether they ran away or whether they were kicked out of their own home at an early age. These were all minors. So that was a really good experience for me, because it led me to really become more interested in the fact of how mental health affects us and affect our life on a daily basis as well. And after I graduated in 2018 from Buffalo State, I joined an AmeriCorps program as a mentor in the Buffalo Public Schools. So my passion has always been working with youth and giving back to the youth community as a first generation Afro-Latina graduate. My experience, I just want to pass that on and let students know that it's possible to, become involved with the community and give back. And even if it's the littlest action, it will still make a change.
Thank you so much. And Hannah. Don't see Hannah.
Hi. Sorry. Hi guys. I'm a senior here at Buffalo State College. I currently work in the CCE office. I'm the chair of the Student Civic Leadership Board. I'm also interning at Transitional Services. With our board, we kind of just work with local community issues and problems, and we kind of just base projects around it. For example, like last week, we held a food drive and clothing drive for a local shelter called Friends Tonight and Transitional Services. So we basically do projects of ongoing issues and current day issues. Yeah, so I've been with them for about 2 years now, and it's a really great experience.
Thank you all so much. So just next question, open to panelists. through using a racial justice lens and really focusing on your work and experiences and thinking about how these issues play out in the community through your work. Would you be willing to share some of your insights?
Sure, I'd be happy to kick it off. So we really, you see a lot of people that are going through and living in poverty, are living with unemployment, food insecurity, as we discuss, and that definitely does affect the Black and Brown community more than it does the white community. And I would say, on the FeedMore's end, we have a term in food banking and in our organization in general that we want to serve the line of people that are in need of food pantries and are food insecure, but we also want to shorten that line. We want to make sure that we are addressing the root causes of hunger. So, one thing that I saw was, people are drowning, absolutely drowning in poverty, in unemployment, in homelessness, in hunger. And are we going to pull people out of the river all the time that they're drowning in, or are we going to build something to make them not fall into that in the first place? So with our organization specifically, we're going to pull people out. If we see people in the river that are drowning, we're going to pull them out. But also, what can we do to prevent that? So things like getting involved in SNAP outreach and helping people sign up for SNAP benefits and be able to utilize that benefit if they're eligible for it, educating people if they don't know that they're eligible for something like that, teaching about food resource management and, building a food budget specifically, and nutrition education, how to utilize healthy food in their homes, finding those things that are affordable, and then improving, health disparities as well, making sure that people are, getting nutritious food and being able to utilize it. And then along with that, in our workforce development program, to make sure that individuals have equal access to jobs and jobs that are well-paying jobs as well, is very important to us as well.
I can add on to that from the habitat side. There are structural barriers to accessing wealth, and I think step one is just acknowledging that exists. And unfortunately, I think that we often get stuck at that part of the conversation. Habitat as an organization is so community driven that it invites people to participate in solving a problem, whether they acknowledge it exists or not, and it opens their eyes to the problem. So the folks who build on our sites, every house requires 6,000 volunteer hours. The primary demographic of our volunteers are either folks that we call home team volunteers. Those are people who come out every single week. They are primarily retired suburban white men, right? They are multiple layers removed from the systemic problems that we recognize as creating barriers to wealth. The other folks who volunteer with us are usually coming through church groups, school groups, or through their employer. A bank might come out and bring their staff. People might come out and think, okay, well, I'm going to learn how to swing a hammer, or I'm going to help build a wall today. But when they're working side by side with the families in our program, and they're listening firsthand to the experiences of another human, it gets really hard to deny that person's experience. And even though we might not be able to change their mind about the system and how the system is working, we're definitely helping them identify that it didn't work for at least somebody, right? It prevented somebody from being able to go purchase a house in a traditional way, from being able to pass down wealth to their children. And in our program, our homeowners, we recognize our relationship with home buyers as a partnership. We partner with them to help them access a mortgage and to build a home and to have an affordable mortgage payment long term. But they partner with us in telling the story of our program. They come to our events, they work on our build sites along volunteers. We want to empower the folks in our program to help tell that story as well, because step one is just acknowledging that we have a problem, and we can talk about all the ways that Habitat is addressing that problem. And Precious, again, probably can speak more eloquently about the program, but bringing volunteers from all corners of our community and letting them engage with a family, a home buyer, somebody who's working their butt off to improve the quality of life for their children, at least they can see human to human that the system isn't working for everybody. Precious, I'm sure you have something to add there.
Oh, Stephanie, you did a wonderful job. One thing I will say, you spoke fantastic about the program and really hit home in terms of the purpose and how we get and overcome the barriers that exist today, even now still. One thing I will say is I attended my first homeowner dedication 2 years ago at Habitat, and it was the most amazing experience. While even myself, I know what it means to purchase and have your own now. I purchased my home back in 2008, but it's nothing like seeing the homeowner that, they work, they sweat. We call it sweat hours for our program participants. They are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into making a difference in their lives and for their children. And when I see the kids and the families, it's so emotional. It's an awesome experience. So if anyone ever gets to go to a Habitat dedication, I know we're in this space of virtual now, it's an amazing thing. And it really brings a different light in terms of the accomplishment, the partnership that goes into play with Habitat. It's just an amazing thing. I will speak from my job, though. I will say that I've seen the racial or the implicit biases. I've seen the discriminating of credit. I've seen that. And I would say that the banks have worked really hard now to identify that. Like Stephanie said, you first have to be aware of it. You have to identify and recognize that there is a problem that exists. Even my coworkers today, we all know about the George Foreman and Breonna Taylor and many, Ahmaud Arbery, many other countless deaths that should not have taken place because of what they look like. So one of the things that I will say is, even in that space, can you guys hear me okay? I know there's background noise. I'm sorry. No, I need you to be quiet. So one of the things that I will say is that you don't realize that good people even have those biases. You don't realize how bad it is until you experience people really being outraged by what happened then. And looking like myself, people that may not look like me, they may look like this, and they say things. They say things like, why are you people rioting? Well, actually, for the most part, it wasn't our people rioting. They were peacefully protesting. There were other people that didn't want that protest to go forth that were causing the chaos. So the things of that, you hear that, and that hurts my heart. So I'm so passionate about breaking those biases and really bringing awareness that this happens, and you won't realize it or you won't understand how to overcome it until you walk in that person's shoes. And unfortunately, when you're a minority, you're Black or a minority, you're not going to see it like Stephanie sees it, but Stephanie will never see it how I see it. So it's about trying to look in that person's eyes and being compassionate to them. And like Stephanie said, having the empathy to be aware that maybe it doesn't impact you, but it impacted that person. So that's first and foremost. And I will say this, on the housing front, there is redlining that exists. And I can see more of that disseminating, but it's still there. So the key is making sure we know how to identify that's happening, because there's laws that are in place and we can hold people accountable to do the right thing. So that's one thing that Habitat does, is that no matter what skin color you are, even if you're struggling with your credit, because I think a lot of the problem is Black people, minorities, we lack that education on how to build credit. So first out of the gates, you saw the display that talked about the $100 for the Caucasian person and the $5 for the minority. Well, that's because a lot of people that look like me are paying twice as much for a car note because they didn't build credit. So out of the gate, they're already behind and they can't save. So I'll just leave that there and to say that there's so many things that we want to do and that we are doing. And we need everybody like you to step up and make a difference, because your steps may seem small, but they're huge in this big world.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Ada or Hannah, do you have any comments?
I had a few questions. One question. I wondered, like from a student perspective of myself, how can students get involved in these organizations? I know right now with COVID, everything is so up in the air. I just wondered if you can even be involved virtually through any of your organizations. I know with Calmlier, I'm a volunteer right now there. We're doing like phone buddy calls with people. Yeah, I don't know if any of that's possible. If anyone could maybe say a little bit about it.
I can jump.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
oh. So yes, Hannah described, we do have the phone buddies right now. A lot of our students unfortunately do not have access to a video camera. So that's why we promote that phone buddy, because we still think that, even the phone conversation can go a long way to build that relationship. And so we also have get volunteers from universities or any colleges, and they could sign up to be either one-on-one mentoring. Because of COVID, we are having most meetings through Zoom. So a lot of our volunteers and clients are connecting right now through that. So yes, we are also facilitating weekly activities for volunteers and clients to join us. So every Wednesday, we, they have bingo night and they have categories. So last week we actually had like 25 people join. And, we started being very consistent because in the beginning with everything going on, it was hard to get people on Zoom and hard to get people to assimilate to this new way that we have now. So it is, I'm actually pretty happy that, people are taking advantage of it and getting a great experience out of it, especially our college students. We get a lot of social work students, but we really get a variety of everything. And, it's something they can always use for, a future purpose.
Thank you for bringing that up, Hannah. It lends well into the next question. And I kind of want to start with Ada because the mental health and well-being of community members, especially marginalized communities, being impacted more by COVID-19. So I guess the question is two-part. How has COVID-19 disproportionately impacted Black, Brown, Indigenous, and Latinx communities within your organizations and communities that you serve? And Ada, like how the mental health piece plays into the current challenges with COVID?
Yeah, I do believe that the mental health piece, it's really a big impact on all of us at this point. But when, focusing on the population we serve, a lot of our kids, we actually serve younger kids, the youth, and we have an adult program, and then we have an older adult program as well. It's affecting the youth in the way that with school is very different and challenging, and now that they're closed again, so that big change, they can't see their friends. Usually when they talk to their mentor, I'm always getting reports about, a kid their grades may be lower as virtual learning compared to how they used to be in the school. And so for a lot of the adults, it's mostly when it comes to families, a lot of them are still struggling mentally to keep a home together. So, they need that extra support and just somebody encouraging them, checking in on them, because sometimes they do not have that. So also a lot of loneliness going on. So that falls into depression. And so we do get a lot of clients who are diagnosed with depression, especially during these times now.
I would say also to jump in on FeedMore's end, we've seen a huge increase in people needing our services since the pandemic started. So just for a little perspective, pre-pandemic, we had in our Western New York service area about 155,000 individuals who were considered food insecure. So food insecurity is being unsure of where your next meal is going to come from, or having been worried about that in like the past week. There's a little, a couple questions that you can ask that would, see if somebody was food insecure. So pre-pandemic, it was about 155,000 individuals in our service area. At this point, we're at about 219,000 individuals. So our needs have increased dramatically. And that's with, the loss of jobs that a lot of people have had. And that specifically has hit the service industry. So, we're in that right now again, hair salons, nail salons, gyms, things like that are all closed, making a lot of people out of a job. And to bring back that racial piece, that's a lot of the Black community is in the service industry. And a lot of that has been now lost, which is devastating to so many families in our area. So we have seen a huge increase in need of people who may have been living paycheck to paycheck, and then all of a sudden it's gone. So COVID has had a huge impact on FeedMore, I will definitely say. In addition to that, our seniors as well. Senior congregate sites. Seniors can't congregate. That's like the number one thing that people cannot do right now. So those meal sites have closed. And a lot of our seniors who have been going to meal sites to have that social interaction and to also get, a very affordable or free meal have lost that benefit. So many of those seniors have transitioned to being home delivered meals for our Meals on Wheels program. And I'll bring that back to how you can get involved is we need volunteers to help deliver those meals to those homebound seniors. Our caseload has increased by thousands of the number of people who need meals delivered to their door, a lot of times every single day. So being involved in that would help us out quite a bit. So there's just a little bit of what we've been doing.
Yeah, just to jump in from the Habitat side, we've seen a similar change in the folks that we serve. A lot of the families in our program are working those service jobs, and they're not everybody is experiencing job loss the same way, right? The folks who are still working are working jobs in places that put them at high risk, right? So every day they're going to work as a cashier or working behind a deli counter, and they are putting themselves at risk by going to work. So we are, our primary funding source as an organization is healthy mortgage payments. So a lot of other nonprofits are sustainable when the community gives donations. We need donations too, but the biggest driver of our organization is every time we build a house, we sell it to a family at an affordable cost, and then that mortgage pays for the next house. When families are unwell and unable to go to work, or they lose their job for a length of time, those mortgage payments stop coming in. So we are fortunate in the sense that the community is still really supporting us, but it's, again, really difficult to tap into a community where everybody is experiencing a crisis. And I'm sure other nonprofits are having that same challenge. But we also have to work with those families to make sure that this challenge doesn't impact their ability to repay their mortgage long term. So we're doing things like setting up payment plans with families. We're extending the life of their mortgage so that they can repay what's missed on the end. We're doing a lot. This is the incentive of partnering with Habitat and not going directly to a bank. We run interference so that there's no bank foreclosing on people who fall behind on their mortgages. We help maintain that relationship, and we create that stability. And as an organization, it's taxing all of us. It's also, back to the original question, we know that this is impacting Black and Brown families more than it's impacting white families. It just is. And then we're also looking at the neighborhoods where our families live, and we're looking at, what resources do they have in their neighborhoods? Where are they getting nutritious foods? Where are they going to the doctor, right? What access do they have to medical care? How easy is it for them to get tested if they fear that they've come into contact with somebody who's COVID positive while going to work at a grocery store? Those are the questions that we're asking. And we are actually working in our office to connect with those families, touch base with them, and just do a pulse check, make sure that they're okay, because sometimes when things get hard, the first thing that you do is withdraw. So we want to make sure that the families in our program are looking at us as a resource and, again, as a partner, even through this challenge.
We appreciate our nonprofit community partners so much. COVID has made it so necessary for your services, but understand that so challenging and difficult work, so we appreciate you. Hannah, do you have another question? Just wanted to pass the mic to you.
Did you want me to go over the Student Civic Leadership Board now, or?
I thought you had a question about career paths and internship opportunities.
Oh, yes. As I said again, from the student perspective, how can students get involved with like internships and, like I said with Tanya, other opportunities within this within your organizations alone?
I think we had a conversation about sometimes students don't realize that their career interests are skills that might be needed in nonprofit organizations. Like we tend to think about social work being that natural fit for nonprofits, but there's also other needs and other career opportunities.
Like criminal justice and other business even.
Exactly.
I can speak on behalf of Habitat. I've only ever worked in nonprofit, and I don't know what draws me to nonprofit other than I have a big mouth and I like to use it for the greater good and to like get the message out. Nobody ever hands me like a megaphone. It's never been needed in my whole life. A microphone, never necessary. But I've always really liked championing a good cause. And that's always been really important to me, is to make sure that other people see the need and making sure that they're like comfortable looking at it, right? So you guys know those like SPCA commercials where they show animals that are so, sick and unwell and it's hard to look at. I've always recognized that you have to make need something that people are comfortable looking at. And so from the time I was in college and started working in animal rescue, I recognized that I was able to do that. I was able to help connect people to a mission in a way that they were comfortable with. What we're talking about today isn't something people are comfortable with. Nobody likes to feel like they are carrying a bias. People don't want to feel like they're perpetuating a problem. So meeting people in the middle is something I've always been able to do. And you wouldn't think, okay, well, that's a skill that's employable in any field specifically, but nonprofit. But there is a need for most skill sets. And the fact that Habitat can make use of somebody like me, trust me, I cannot build a house. They wouldn't let me out to build a house, but they can make use of that skill set. And it's broader than that. I see what I like to do, what I love to do, what I'm good at. I apply it to my role. But you might just have an interest in something like graphic design. Nonprofits are often struggling to afford things like new websites, right? Updating brands. Those things are super expensive. And this is a shameless plug. But if you want to have a really impressive resume, volunteer. That volunteer experience might lend itself to a job opportunity, and nonprofits are an excellent way to network yourself in the Buffalo community, because we do have a really charitable community. Our neighbors are so giving, and you're going to meet people at all levels of different organizations, no matter what nonprofit you work with. I've run the gamut of them. So there's a lot of ways that we can make good use of everybody's time, talent, and passion. Don't think there's anything that you're interested in that a nonprofit can't use. There's a very good chance that we can.
I'll speak on Bank of America. So Bank of America does have a program. If you go to bankofamerica.com/careers, you can search, and a lot of times don't put like your zip code, because a lot of times you can not volunteer, you can intern virtually for different things. So if you look at that website, there may be some things for students. Right now, if you do know someone who is a high school senior, though, there is something called Bank of America Leader Program. So we are looking for seniors right now in high school. So please share. They can go to the Bank of America website. There is a program where Bank of America pays student leaders, and they'll actually give them a mentor, and we'll get guidance and career guidance that way too. So I know, Hannah, you're a little bit beyond that senior in high school, but if you know anyone or if anyone has any little sisters or brothers, that's another thing too.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially on the intern front. We love an intern, especially an unpaid intern. If we can give you some college credit to help us out at our location, I love it, absolutely. I know we have had, I think I saw Carol donation on this call today, but we have had Buff State dietetic interns coming in. We are doing a new partnership. We have social work interns coming in. But like Stephanie said as well, if those are the kind of things that you think about when thinking of nonprofits, like the nutrition side or the social work side or whatever it may be, graphic design, like Stephanie said, huge. Nonprofits always need help in that. At FeedMore specifically, we do a lot with advocacy. So if you are a political science major or something like that, a business major, IT, your skills will be utilized. So to reach out and just to say that you are interested in an internship, we will kind of do what we can to make you fit in. So absolutely, just don't ever be afraid to just reach out and say, this is my skill set, here's my resume, I'm interested in your organization, how can I help? Nonprofits love things like that. So I would highly recommend reaching out.
So I already gave a little bit of an overview about our internships and volunteer experience, but just talking about my own personal experience a little bit, and just going off from Stephanie, from Stephanie's point, volunteering was what led me to where I am now and to my career path. And as an undergrad, I am honored and thankful that I was connected with the Civic Community Engagement Office very early my freshman year, because I was able to explore different ways. I joined the alternative break program, and I was able to volunteer and do different things. And something always drew me towards just that youth and giving back to the youth and connecting to the youth community. So as Stephanie said, don't be afraid to go out there and let yourself be known, because networking is also very important, and that's something now the nonprofit world can help you develop.
So we have a few more minutes left in our session, so I want to ask Devin if we have any questions in the chat, anything for the panel, or maybe a direct question to one of our panelists.
Sure. So first thing, panelists, are you comfortable providing your email or contact information so that attendees can get in touch with you either about some of the volunteer opportunities that you mentioned or with further questions? Are you guys willing to leave your contact information in the chat?
Yes, and I just did.
Yep.
Thank you. So as you have, I know we're kind of running short on time here today, but if you have further questions and want to talk about anything, please reach out to our panelists. But to kind of elaborate further on our conversation today, would you mind talking a little bit about food deserts, describing what those are and how that plays into issues of food security?
Sure, absolutely. So a food desert is an area where access to a supermarket or healthy food in general is limited. So FeedMore in general, we always are looking at maps. That is something that we love to look at, is a nice map. And we kind of take a look at the different supermarkets that are in the area, or any other, locations that can provide healthy food to individuals. If you are somebody that is living in the city of Buffalo and you don't have access to a car, our public transportation system isn't all that great. So you might be walking to the closest store to buy your groceries. And in order to do that, you got to carry them back as well. So a lot of times people are needing to go to corner stores to do most of their grocery shopping, or traveling very long distances and not being able to do that all that often. So on our end, how we utilize that mapping and seeing where those food deserts are, we try to be very strategic in where our food distributions are going to be. So targeting food deserts, and being able to provide either a food pantry or a mobile food pantry distribution, or a new thing coming up next year, we're going to be having a mobile market. So we're going to be purchasing trucks where it's basically like a food truck, where we are going to be able to sell fresh fruits and vegetables directly in neighborhoods, and very affordable as well. You would be able to use your SNAP benefits, your WIC dollars, and it's really, really exciting to be able to provide healthy food items where people can access them. We're only as good as how accessible we are. So that's a little bit about food deserts and a little bit about the work that we do with those.
Can I just add to that, from where we build homes? At Habitat, we have this challenge of building homes in communities where there aren't any other resources. Actually, we have one neighborhood in particular where we have a commitment of 20 houses. We've built 15 of them, and we recognized it as a food desert. We worked with the city of Buffalo. We lobbied for an actual grocery store, and what we ended up with was a Family Dollar. And anybody in the food bank world will tell you that that doesn't really solve the whole problem. Family Dollars and many corner stores typically have high calorie but low in nutrition food, right? So they don't have the vitamins and minerals that you actually need to consume. These stores don't often carry fresh fruits and vegetables and dairy products. And so we tried to lobby the city. We actually went to the owner of a business in the city of Buffalo to try to get the city to change their mind, and they approved a dollar store. And that dollar store is going to drive out the supermarkets. So this isn't just a problem for food and food providing agencies. This is a problem for most nonprofits in this community. Food deserts are a challenge for organizations like Habitat, for organizations that are addressing things like mental health, for organizations that address education. Kids can't learn if they're not properly fed and getting the nutrients that they need. So this really is a systemic problem, especially in the city of Buffalo, and actually in rural areas of the county as well, but I digress.
So I know that we're running out of time. Hannah has a couple announcements, and then I have some closing remarks. So I'd just like to turn it over to Hannah.
Thank you, Tanya. Hi, Hannah again. I'm just here to advocate for the Student Civic Leadership Board here on campus. Like I said, it's a board right now to raise awareness on issues like these. Right now, we've done so many projects to combat these issues and just kind of raise awareness right now. For example, like we did a domestic violence awareness tree. It's in South Wing. We set it up on a window, and it kind of it demonstrates the orders that New York State put out, and it's really amazing to see. It's really sad, but that's like one thing we've done. Right now it's open to students. We're taking applications for the spring semester. Aurora, I have a link here as well. You can put in the chat. But anyone's welcome. We're really looking for members. It's a really easy way to get involved in stuff like this. We can even help you get connected to these resources. We've even paired with these resources as well, these different organizations, and we've done a lot of things with them on campus. Right now we're really into like just leadership, and we're just here to kind of just raise awareness of these issues on campus and to our fellow students. So I encourage everyone to just get involved, and it really helps with grad school too. We're so into volunteering, so I would definitely consider joining. It's a really great opportunity for all of you students. I joined like 3 years ago, and it's just been an amazing experience. So yeah, I would consider it for sure, and just look it over. I have a link for the website, and it shows all of our events we've done and different things we're involved in, our mission statement. So yeah, I would definitely take a look into that.
Thank you, Hannah. Okay, so I'd like to thank Stephanie for recommending, there's a film, Segregation by Design. It is about 20 minutes long. We weren't able to share it with you today, but it's well worth your time if you want to have some deeper understanding of the issues, especially with policies and our government, created some of these systemic issues. And then to thank our friends at the Butler Library, which is where you can find the video. It is included on the Black Lives Matter LibGuide, and we're going to drop that link in the chat. So in addition to Segregated by Design, there's a lot of other valuable resources that you can check out as well. The other thing I just wanted to mention for our students, any student who may be struggling with food insecurity, or a classmate, a peer, a friend who may be struggling, here on campus we do have a food pantry called Milligan's that is available in the Campbell Student Union, and we're going to drop the link there as well. It's a support for students, but also students who are struggling can take advantage of community resources as well. Okay, well, just want to say thank you so much to our wonderful presenters. This has been a fabulous discussion. We are so grateful for your time, your willingness to share your knowledge and experience. It was just a great discussion. We really admire the work that you do and appreciate everything